Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to some more Warhammer Lore. Today we are looking at Markus Wulfheart. He's a acquaintance of the Beastman. What a coincidence, right? So, the story of Markus and his cheating son of a bitch Bo starts in the tiny farming village of Drakkenberg, located rather stupidly inside of the Drakveld forest. As a general rule of thumb, you do not fucking live within the Drakveld forest unless you are willing to accept the consequences. The consequences including being eaten by beastmen, being eaten by giants, being eaten by minotaurs, being eaten by dragons, being eaten by manticores, being eaten by chaos warriors, being eaten by your fucking neighbours if the winds blow correctly. In general, not the most pleasant place to set up shop, but the remarkably silly little inhabitants of Drakkenberg probably didn't have anywhere else to go, and God knows that the local rulers of Midland really don't give that much of a shit to who they give out planning permissions to. You see, the Drakveld Forest, being one of the largest forests in the Empire, is a remarkably dangerous place, and the current owners, Nordland and Midland, have kinda given up on it. Back in the day, the Drakveld was its own elector province. It had its own elector count and everything, and for a while it even held the seat of the Emperor, but, well, that's been quite a while ago. Nordland and Midland had some various border skirmishes over the province, but eventually it was decided that they would split the forest in roughly equal halves because, well, frankly, there's nothing particularly valuable in that accursed fucking place, except for ridiculous amounts of beastmen and other monstrosities. Not exactly prime real estate. The last major attempt to clean the province happened before that in 1265, when Count Falk of Midland attempted to cleanse the Drakveld of its various inhabitants. That was a fairly short-lived venture. In fact, I think it lasted for about 4 weeks, until a total of 30 warherds, some 10 or 20,000 beastmen, all rampaged right across his poor little army. It was a rather one-sided fight, to say the least, and then in 1414, the peace treaty between Nordland and Midland was finally signed, finally dividing the territory between the two. Not that that has helped things much in the forest, though. It is still a remarkably dangerous place where, well, even the beastmen would think it to be a fairly unsafe place to venture outside during the wee hours of the night. Currently, the city is inhabited by every single fucking nasty in the Warhammer world. Giants, miniatures, doombulls, chaos warbands, beastmen, manticores, dragons, trolls, gorgons, harpies, and corpulent Eastern European prostitutes. And it was in this particular neighborhood that Markus's parents decided, you know what, this'll be a wonderful place to raise a child. And by some motherfucking miracle, Markus actually managed to grow up before a giant wandered into his village and murdered every single one of his friends, families, and loved ones in a single day. If you ask me, the fucker got lucky. But not content by being blessed so thoroughly by Lady Luck, Markus decided, like all normal, balanced, and sane people would, to hunt the giant down with his bow. Now, this is usually where the tale of Markus would end, with him being eaten in a rather messy fashion by a creature many times his size. However, Markus was a sneaky little bastard, and used his expertise with a bow to blind the giant, who conveniently only had one eye left, by shooting a rather large arrow into its face. With the giant now blind, the ablest bastard Markus went at his hamstrings with a two-handed sword, and while it took quite a few swings, even with a two-handed sword, to cut the Achilles tendons of a giant, Markus eventually managed to bring the now crippled beastie down. Not giving two shits about the fact that the poor little bastard was now blind and crippled, Markus jumped onto its back and started rapidly slashing at its neck. Again, this probably took about half an hour of solid hewing, but Markus had nothing but time on his hands. After all, the giant had already eaten his nagging wife and children, so he had all the time in the world to truly ram home the point. Personally, I'm almost a little disappointed that Markus didn't go full-on Saw on the giant's ass, just chopping off its various fingers one by one and laughing maniacally while doing so. I'm thinking something along the lines of a dark and gritty remastering of Gulliver's Travels, where the little people chop off his wing-wang, hollow it out and use it as cheap lodgings for the poor. Would have been a good way to start rebuilding his village, but sadly Markus did not have the foresight to imagine such creative uses for the giant's various body parts. Granted, it would smell like an absolute bastard when summer got around, but cheap housing. But the story of Markus, of course, does not end here merely with the mindless butchery of one poor monstrosity whose only crime in life was violently murdering and eating humans. Okay, now that you mention it, that does sound like a pretty good reason to kill it, but nevertheless, Markus had acquired a bit of a taste for this whole violent butchery thing. And he couldn't very well go around murdering humans, could he? Because, well, that would kind of suck. But luckily, he found himself in the middle of the Drakwold forest, the biggest free fire zone in the entire empire. He was literally surrounded by things he could very easily justify murdering in the most violent fashion imaginable. And so our burgeoning mass murderer Markus made a holy oath that he would genocide the ass of every single non-human creature that creeped or crawled in the forest. And the fact is, he got so goddamn good at euthanizing everything that crept, crawled, and screamed in the forest that the Emperor himself rewarded him with a special favour. In recognition of his remarkable talent at murdering things with hooves and horns, the Emperor Karl Franz presented Markus with a knighthood, along with a nobleman's estate. This is rare, to say the absolute least, that a commoner gets rewarded with not only a knighthood, but an estate along with it. This is a gift that most people could only dream of, but Markus had other interests. He did not wish to live the luxurious life of some country noble. He wished to continue to bathe in the blood of his enemies, and so respectfully declined the gift. Suitably unpressed by this, Karl Franz couldn't simply let Markus leave empty-handed, however, and presented him with a powerful magical artifact, the Amber Bow. A magical bow created and carved from the very wood of the Drakwold forest itself, and imbued with a magical enchantment made by an amber wizard. This bow had the very, very handy enchantment indeed of magically enchanting any arrow fired from the weapon to head straight towards an enemy's heart. A rather useful ability for a long-distance weapon like a bow, as you can probably imagine, especially as, well, pretty much any monster you're going to be hunting probably has some primary organ pumping blood. And most creatures, even in the Warhammer world, are fairly reliant on blood to survive, so if the primary organ pumping it throughout the body is currently incapacitated by having a massive wooden shaft rammed through it, it is a pretty damn effective way of making sure the bastard stays down. And perhaps an even more valuable gift, Karl Franz bestowed upon Markus the title of Huntsmarshal, the Emperor's personal captain of scouts, and thereby tasked him with recruiting a band of like-minded individuals to continue his quest of mass genociding everything that doesn't speak Reichspiel within the forest of Drakwold. And, well, Markus was a remarkably dedicated individual and euthanized many a hoofed creature by himself, but as any truly ambitious genocidal maniac knows, it's a hell of a lot easier if you've got some help. And so the formation of scouts known as Wulfheart's Hunters, an elite band of monster slayers, were created, and they have since shoved their hard, pointy objects into many a scaly beastie, including an ice dragon, a chimera, a talon beast, and even Malathrax the Mighty, a doom-fire dragon, a particularly large and nasty scaly beastie. In addition to that, he has killed God only knows how many minotaurs, gorgons, centaurs, and various levels of beastman monstrosities, including giants and razorgors. And while the exact number is not known, we can all say with certainty that Wulfheart's hunting cabin is very, very well stocked indeed, both in slightly suspect meat and hunting trophies. And to this very day, Markus Wulfheart still stalks the Drakworld forest, hunting down and one-sidedly murdering anything that does not identify as a human. Attack helicopters, for example. I've been Arch, thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you again soon. Have a good day.